Okay, let's get started, everyone. Welcome to tonight's Water Pollution Control Authority meeting. It is Wednesday, March 16th. John has been so kind as to post the agenda online. Are there any proposed changes to the agenda? Seeing none, we will proceed. First item in front of us are the approval of the February 16th meeting minutes. Comments or questions on that? Joe, thanks for working with Sheila on those. Appreciate it. A motion to approve?
Motion.
From Chris, a second from Tom. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Abstain from Matt. Aye from Ron, Joe, and Nancy. Okay, first item of new business. Consider an act on a policy update for sewer installation. This relates to the project we have with Tim Warren and Company, and we've spent a number of meetings in kind of creating and fine-tuning that policy, and we need to fine-tune it a bit more relative to the paving. And Joe, do you have a motion on this?
Yeah, let me make the motion. I'd like to make a motion to adjust the policy for homeowners that want to install a sewer line, keeping everything in place and adding one clause to it that says the WPCA will be responsible for the costs to repair the street. And that means it will be at our discretion whether we pave just the trench or whether we go a little bit further, but that's in our perusal. Originally, for the two gentlemen, Chris and Tom, who weren't on the commission, it read that the town would pay for the paving. And that became unrealistic because we'd have to meet their schedule when they put their budgets together. If they didn't include any of these projects, they would not have the money to do the paving. So this change would basically say we could work with the town if they had the resources to do it, but the WPCA will pay for it.
So we've discussed this before. We kind of came to an agreement, and it's my fault for actually not bringing it to a vote to modify the policy. Joe was kind enough not to say that.
So as far as the project itself covers the cost of backfilling the trench up to grade, and then the WPCA is responsible for the finishing, is basically what it comes down to then.
Yeah, the discussion with the homeowners is that it would not necessarily be at the standard of finish that the road is at now. Right. But it would be at grade, and they were okay with that. I will say that there's been quite a bit of correspondence from the Tim Warren, who represents the homeowners, in trying to get this moved along so that we can get an RFP out to get this project underway. So the immediate next steps would be to modify the policy officially tonight and to get Jim Baldwin, hopefully as soon as tomorrow, to draft the agreement, which is no small task, and there's a number of moving parts here, and then get this project out for bid.
Okay, and Mark, just one more update. It has nothing to do with the motion in front of us, but in discussion with Jim Baldwin, he's deciding whether there needs to be an agreement or whether the way the policy is written will cover us, the town.
Okay, great.
He's going to make that decision. So he may not want to go agreement. He may just say the policy is good enough for what we're doing, covers us.
Great. I mean, that's testament to the work you put in, Joe. That's a pretty comprehensive document. Policy. I mean, it's the first new WPCA policy in the last few decades.
So the basis for doing this is that, if left to the town to do the repairs, is effectively unworkable because the town is unable to foresee the, construction or the bringing the road back up to, its status prior to any, new sewer lines dug in. Is that,
Yeah.
if I understand it correctly?
Yeah, I'll give you like the Reader's Digest version. There's a group of homeowners who are adjacent to, a sewer line went in to support a project that's right next to them. It's, over on, Mill Hill Terrace, what's the road that goes up? I don't think it much matters. There's 6 or 7 homeowners. There's on a street, I think 5 are interested in having they have aging septic tanks. They're in a watershed. We want to get them onto a sewer line.
Mm-hmm.
So with a number of meetings back and forth, we've come to an agreement where a third party will put in the infrastructure, allowing them to run laterals to connect to a line that will then be deeded over to us. And they will pay we'll bond that, and then they will pay for that over the next 20 years. The last piece was, okay, who's going to pay for who's going to do the paving and who's going to pay for it? And we were hopeful that we could get that onto the Department of Public Works paving schedule.
Mm-hmm.
They were pretty to the point in coming back to us and saying, we have, that's not something we're going to do, and you're not going to
bodies across the track,
and you're not going to tell us, what we should do. So, so we've agreed that that's something that we will pay.
Okay, so then this is specific. This is not a broad policy statement. It's specific.
No, it will be a broad policy statement.
Okay.
So,
all right, but this incident precipitated the need for this policy change.
yes. I think, if you look at the components of the policy, there's probably 15 data points that go into the algorithm of who pays for what and how it's calculated and how it's amortized and bonded and so forth.
Okay.
And so it helps out the homeowners quite a bit, but it's not an inexpensive process for them.
Yeah.
I think it probably comes out to be plus or minus $20,000 to $25,000 a house.
Cheaper than sewer.
Yeah, cheaper than a sewer and new business for us.
So just, I didn't have a chance to fully read the policy. I kind of skimmed through it, so I'm not fully up to speed on that, I'll admit. So what you're saying is that the WPCA is, paving, is gonna finish and pave the town road. Why wouldn't that be under the contract price of installing the sewer?
I think you have to go back and look at the back and forth.
Okay, that's why I didn't.
And in fairness to these homeowners, they've been waiting for 5 or 6 months now for us to memorialize what we agreed to.
But
And
to your point,
Chris?
Chris, I do think go ahead, Joe.
Sorry, Joe.
No, go ahead, Matt. Matt, please.
So I was just gonna say, I mean, I'm obviously very supportive. I've been involved in this the whole time. I think that it would probably help everybody to have some form of a standard detail that we include as part of this that sort of highlights the contractor's expense versus the WPCA, since it's a cost sharing for the actual construction with the third party, and then it sounds like we're picking up the finish. Understanding what the contractor's responsibility, where that ends and where ours begins, in terms of like a section view of the pavement, so that there's like binding up to a certain level and then the sub base and all that. Like, I would think that that's all part of the contractor's responsibility, but then the actual asphalt on top is us. I think it should probably be pretty specific.
And just, I know when we're dealing with towns and I'm doing on the other end on the, install work, like we've been the homeowners before, we've been the people that joining and tapping into it. We're responsible for everything. So, kind of how it works where I've worked is that the inspected, you get your, you put your process down, they do a top coat just to patch the trench. They wait a year. They don't want you to touch it until after a year, until everything settles. And then afterwards, you gotta grind it out and prep it to town standards, which is, it's basically a 2 and 2, 2 inches of binder and 2 inches of top coat. So you got at a minimum 3+ inches of asphalt with another 8 inches of process on it. That's the way I've always known it, and it's always been in the contractor. I'm more than happy if we do it, I'm fine with it. But normally, the way I see it is, it's always done and bonded through the contractor, and then whoever it is that has the bond won't get the bond back until that they'll get half released, and then they won't get the rest back until it's finished paved after a year.
I think, Chris, when this goes out for bid, if you could be involved in that process, that would be super helpful.
I'd be more than happy, and I'm totally supportive on. I don't want to throw a wrench in this. Believe me, I don't want to throw a wrench or do anything. So I'm supportive on whatever we decide. Yeah. And if I was a homeowner and a contractor, I'd be more than happy you guys are taking care of the paving. But as long as you're going to let it settle for a while, because you're always going to get it settling after 8 months to a year. That's what happens. And I don't want to see us paving it right after it's installed and backfilled, because no one's going to be happy, and then the Public Works is going to be pissed at us.
Yeah, I don't think Public Works actually do the paving. I mean, generally, Public Works does the prep and the grinding, but it's an outside contractor typically does paving within the town. So
I don't know how this town does it.
That's my understanding. That's the way it's always been done.
I don't know either. But I think it would be good to get the contractor who's doing the work to have a separate line item for that coming back in a year. And the reason why it would be separated is because everything before that is cost shared between the owners and the WPCA, and then that last line item where they come back in a year, the cost is borne by us. But having that one contractor be responsible for the full project, even if it's financed through.
And I'm just saying, it could be significant. They're putting a 3-foot trench in, usually grind 2 feet on either side. You got a 6-foot trench going down at, I'd budget $3 a square foot by the time you're done with it to pave it, at least.
Yeah.
So it could be significant.
Yeah, I'm not sure we within the town have an owner of this project per se, which is usually a recipe for disaster. So as this RFP is being generated, if you could be involved in that.
That'd be more than that.
Similar to the meeting we had the other day with Bill Hurley, that would be really helpful.
I'd be more than happy to.
Yeah. Okay, so the motion's out. Is there a second? Second from Matt. All in favor? Aye.
I'm
Aye.
abstaining.
Aye.
Chris abstains. Nancy's aye. And Ron's an aye. Okay.
Joe's an aye.
We have a couple sewer adjustments next. I'm going to defer to Sean Clancy and Joe on this.
Sure. We have 2 sewer adjustments. Joe has been kind enough to help with the help of the tax collector. The first one is Louise Broadhurst at 3963 Park Avenue. Joe, I believe you've reviewed this, and I've gotten your email. Would you like to give us your thoughts, please?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so trying to get the two of them straight in my mind. This was a significant leak at 3963 Park Avenue. And the documentation shows that Aquarian did their adjustment. They did give the homeowners they did give the homeowners a
154.
Credit for the water usage, and the folks had the leak fixed. We actually billed them for 600. It was $1,600 or $1,800, and I would like to make a proposal. They've been averaging, and in fact, coincidentally, talking with the town tax collector, $299.04 for the last 2 years. So they've been very consistent. They have not had anybody, the nature of the usage has not changed. The same number of people in the house. They haven't rented the house. They haven't brought kids back home from college. None of that. So what I'd like to do is just make a motion to adjust the sewer bill for $39.63 to $299.04, which is reflecting the previous year's bill. Further, as they have paid $656, the first installment, the tax collector is authorized to issue a credit to the account of $357.84. That would be the difference between what they paid and what I'm proposing. And this credit can be refunded or remain on the ratepayer's account at the discretion of the ratepayer. That would be my motion.
Second.
Second from Tom. Comments, questions?
One question, did we have any rate changes? Should it be adjusted to, based on, instead of being the same number, should it be a
Yeah,
percent increase?
that's pretty consistent with what I've done in the past, raising that up to that other 5%.
Yeah. So it'd be a-
$14, and I just said, in my mind, forget about it. But you're absolutely correct.
Sorry,
Get that $14, Joe.
So do you want that $14? I'll change all these numbers.
No,
I don't care though.
keep the motion.
Hope to think of economy.
Yeah, all in favor?
Yeah.
Aye.
Sorry, Jeff.
No, I understand exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, you know, he would have done that if he was in the motion.
Let's just jump to 1353 Brooklawn. Much sadder story here. An old man lived in the house, and he's lived in the house alone, has no relatives. I mean, this is a tearjerker, this one. Significant leaks in this house. And in fact, the gentleman died. The estate sold the property. But before they could sell the property, they had to settle the bill with us. And, but they sold the property. The house is in the process of being torn down. So what I'd like to do is make a motion to adjust the 2021 sewer usage bill for 1353 Brooklawn to the minimum bill of $150, which was the bill not for the last 2 years, but for every year prior to that, before these leaks started on this old house. So I want to bring it back to the minimum and further authorize the tax collector to refund the difference to what was paid towards the bill and $150, and to refund the difference to the estate. Because this money is now going to the estate. It doesn't go back to the homeowner. He has passed away.
Yep.
Mel, second.
Agreed.
Second, all in favor? Yep. All right. Joe, thanks for doing
Thank you, Joe.
Yeah, what's
on
that
both.
difference amount we're sending back to the estate? I'm just curious what the math is.
John Clancy did not include that. That's why I did not incorporate it. It was close. I believe, John, was close to $6,000.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Nancy, the difference would be somewhere around $6,000.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
The scary story, kind of reminded me of the Collier brothers.
Yeah.
It's just something
Joe,
for the
really,
estate. It's a sad story, but with a slightly uplifting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there'll be a
Something.
new
It's
house
something.
that's built on, a new house built on the property and
Yeah, we're gonna have a problem with the folks that they build a new house because we don't have a basis on the usage for the next year, but that's gonna be next year's problem.
Okay, moving on to old business. We have the consider and act on a request for a proposed 9-unit residential building at 321 Reef Road. Let me, I should have mentioned, John Bodie's at a Board of Finance meeting tonight. So, there's been some back and forth on 321 Reef Road. Is there a representative from 321?
Yes, it's Bob Weway from Coda Spodian Associates, on behalf of the applicant.
Okay.
So what I could do is I could give you a brief update of where we left things off at the last meeting. After the last WPCA meeting, the town of Fairfield, at the direction of John Bodie, went out and inspected the sewer line at Catherine Terrace, on Oldfield Road at Catherine Terrace, to inspect the sewer line. And what they found with the TV inspection is that the line was in pretty decent shape or an average condition. So based upon the town's findings on that, we had a conversation, or John Bodie and I had a conversation about the roughness coefficient to be used for the 10-inch AC pipe and how that related to the peak flow conditions that were going through the pipe. So what we did is we used an average number for the AC pipe with a Manning's coefficient of 0.013 and reran the calculations based upon that number. Using that modified roughness coefficient, what was found is that the pipe was operating at existing 73.8% capacity. And then with the proposed additional flow, that would bring that pipe up to 75.3% capacity. So those numbers are below your 80% threshold, for operating capacity on the line. And then we also provided some additional information with regards to comparisons of the flows for what would be allowed under the existing use of the facility, which is a medical building, and then comparing that to the proposed use for the 9-unit residential setup. And we sent the memo out to John Clancy on that with our findings. And the short side of that is that the proposed residential use will be approximately 729 gallons less than what the medical building would produce under if it were fully utilized. So in terms of the maximum daily flow, that ends up equating to approximately 2,914 gallons per day less than what the medical use would yield under maximum flow conditions. So it ends up being a reduction of approximately 22% on the daily flow rates for what's being proposed with the residential. So that's the short side of it. If the commission members have questions on the calculations that we provided, I'm certainly more than happy to try and answer those.
Comments, questions? Joe, the thought I had is in calculating the I&I, do we calculate, I forget, I'm thinking you may recall, is the I&I calculated based on what do we use as the offset? We know what the proposed flow is going to be. Do we use a vacant building? Do we use the last 3 years? Does anyone recall?
Mark, as far as I know, we have always used the offset of the previous owner, but we have never gone back, if it's been empty for 3, 5, 10 years, we have never ever gone back the way Bob just went back and did the offset. So
Yes.
I don't think we have a precedent as far as offsets.
Okay.
Well, again, I think what you're referring to in terms of the offset, that was just for comparison purposes. So.
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, I'm sorry, Bob. I understand that, but what Mark's asking, I think, is the I&I calculation. So
yeah, I'm just getting to the motion.
Yeah.
Just from my simple mind, I&I will back that off because that shouldn't be part of the calculation of what enters the sewer system.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. And I'm a little bit fuzzy on there's not one algorithm that's universally applied, some percentage of Well, I guess it can't be, that doesn't make sense either, now I think about it.
Universal formula, the coefficient changes based on pipe material and age and all those kind of
But
factors.
wouldn't also be affected by the location, wouldn't there be, higher incidence of I&I in certain parts of town than others?
Two different issues. One is the actual flow through the pipe,
Yeah.
and then the I&I, we can't pin to any specific, well, we have a sense of where it is, but we have an I&I policy so that when there's new development, we need to extract I&I out of the system in order, because our plant's at, about 90% capacity right now. So we're constantly trying to pull the infiltration out of kind of the weak points in the system so that we can support new development.
Where do you normally calculate the I&I on? If it's new development, it's just whatever it is that you're increasing.
Yeah, so we know what the new projected use is going to be minus existing use.
And that's how you usually do it, is existing use. So you just take the past 3 years of data, or the last year's data on
Last year's data.
Wouldn't it just be easier to do it that way, instead of rejiggering the whole system? To calculate the I&I, just go to last year's, even though he wasn't fully occupied, what else are we gonna go by?
Yeah, so I had forgotten what we used as the offset. Usually it's spelled out in the proposal, in the application. So that's what I was asking Joe, is it the last year or is it the average of? Yeah, I'll look it up. Because we're gonna need it for the motion.
Yeah, if you recall, Mark, last month in the minutes especially, we asked John Clancy and the developer to put those numbers together for us, and it wasn't in this month's proposal.
No, we're gonna need that for the
So
motion.
if I do make a motion, it's gonna have to be subject to the calculation.
Yeah, I think in the interest of time, we do that.
Because, I think the critical number, as far as I'm concerned, is the 75.1%. It
Yeah,
falls
the
under
capacity.
capacity to me, so
Yeah,
we would
Yeah.
give approval. I'm talking for myself. I would certainly give approval. And then the only issue we have is what to use as the offset for the I&I.
Yeah, all right, well, let's approve it and just use, subject to the policy.
Mhm.
I don't wanna hold up everyone's time trying to find the policy.
The proposed is 75.3, is that, or?
That's
That's two different, that's the capacity, and the I&I.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, I thought this number I heard, my bad.
Yeah, there's two questions. One we're prepared to answer, which is there sufficient capacity in the system?
Right, as Joe said, at the end of the
Right.
day, as long as we're comfortable with that.
Exactly.
And
And then the
we-
second question, which we're not prepared to answer right now, is what is the I&I?
Yeah, what the actual number is.
Right.
We know what the components of the calculation are going to be, so we can approve it.
Right.
And with a two-year grace period to actually, presumably they'll go to planning and zoning next. And, so Joe, why don't you fashion the motion and we'll get it approved and move forward.
Okay. I didn't see anywhere in the documentation, Bob, who was the developer?
The developer is Phoenix Construction.
Phoenix Construction. Thank you. Okay, I'd like to make a motion, Mr. Chairman.
Please.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the application by Phoenix Construction for a 9-unit residential development building at 321 Reef Road. This approval will be effective for 2 years from this date. The applicant will be required to return to the commission for a reapproval in March 2024 if a permit has not been issued. This approval is subject to the payment of, let me see how I'm going to say this, of the calculated sewer usage fee to be paid, the calculated sewer usage fee in effect to be paid when the permit is issued. Cover
Second,
everything?
second from Matt. All in favor?
Aye.
Tom,
Aye.
Chris,
Aye.
Matt, myself, Nancy, Ron, Joe. Joe, thank you for crafting that motion.
Hey, Mark,
Okay. Ron?
Mark? Yeah,
Sure.
I found something in the February minutes where it gives the INI structure and
Yep.
fees. Is that gonna be worthwhile to you? Is that what you're looking for?
Ron, why don't you read it?
Oh, it's too long.
Okay. We approved the motion, the department will do the calculation.
Okay.
Okay.
The date of revision is August 26, 2020.
Yeah, we've revised it a number of times,
What was the caveat in the motion? Subject to
2 years.
2-year review.
Yeah, 2-year review. Yeah.
Revisit.
Okay, so 321 Reef Road, you're all set.
Okay, thank you very much.
Very welcome. Okay, as we move on to the update on the current projects, I'm gonna, we've kind of prioritized those into the kind of the buckets of those that we think we can kind of get moving right away. I want to thank Chris and Matt for their work over the last few months. There was a meeting last week with the engineering department of the town to kind of get a few of these projects back on track. I also want to thank Tom and Joe for meeting with John Bodie and getting him in good shape for tonight's Board of Finance meeting. It's a lot of assistance coming from the commission, and I think we're all very grateful for that. Why don't we begin with the new projects, and I'm going to ask Matt and John to and Chris to start us off.
Sure.
Let's start with Metro Center, or
Is that East Trunk?
oh.
Metro Center's Wetlands Crossing?
Yes.
Okay, I go with East Trunk and Wetlands Crossing, those are my titles.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Wetland Crossing, we're awaiting results from the geotech information that the borings were complete, I guess, about 2 weeks ago. And so we're waiting on the report from the engineer. And then I guess we have to have a meeting with D&B to understand. They, in February, what was it, February 28th email, they had said that they are working on design. I'm not clear what they're working on as far as design. I haven't heard of what recommended upgrades they're planning on doing, whether or not lining is still an option, or if they're planning on doing any kind of trenchless, or if they're planning on dig and replace for that pipe. And so I think a meeting with D&B engineers to understand where they're currently at with the design is necessary. I think the geotech information was an important component of that, and so at this point, though, I would imagine they should be prepared to talk to us about where they're at.
Yeah. So this is a pipe that comes from the Metro Center development, which we understand has been sold again, and will probably come to Nancy. You'll probably see this in some form or fashion. I suspect that they don't want to, they came to us for approval a number of years ago, and that was a mix of, I think it was a hotel and some residential and some office. I don't know that there's much appetite for hotels and office space these days. So it'll come back to the commission, I would imagine. And the pipe that goes from the development site and runs through the wetlands is, we had scoped a number of years ago, and it looked like there were some issues with the integrity of the pipe, to assess what our optionality was relative to either lining that pipe or replacing it. We did an RFP process that was about 15 months ago. The town chose a firm named D&B to run that process. And then D&B came back last December and said, we're almost there, but we have to do some more test borings, kind of in the swampiest part of the swamp, and we need a big piece of equipment to do that. So they got that big piece of equipment in, they did those test borings, and then those results should be forthcoming. We will then need, as a commission, need to make the determination what we do about that pipe, if we can line it or if we have to replace it. And there's probably going to be a timing issue with that, as the Metro Center, my understanding, was bought by the guys who have done the apartments over in that area that have come to us a few times over the last 5-6 years. And they moved pretty quickly. So they're gonna want to start building, and we're gonna need to figure out what to do with that pipe. And then a little bit further down the road, we have another pipe called
Biggest trunk intersection.
Which, Tom, if you want to visualize kind of.
I know the area.
Yeah, okay, so like from Vinnie's, the old Vinnie's Ale House, kind of Grassmere. You kind of go up Grassmere, and then I think you take a right on, is that Kenwood?
Kenward,
Kenward?
Kennard.
There's an old pipe there that's been there for a long, long time. And we think that it's fairly porous. Although, you know, if John Bodie was here, I'd ask him to actually run a camera in that pipe. I'd like to see it. And that, to replace that pipe is a fairly major undertaking, major, like $10 million. So we had hired a firm named Cardinal Engineering a few years ago to give us a design for that project. They came back, I think there was an initial estimate of maybe $2 or $3 million, and then it was like fine-tuned to like $8 million. And they gave a presentation, and we said that $8 million doesn't include the lateral connections and a few other things, so it's probably more like 10. And why don't we have another firm, design firm named Ray Pierce, take a look at that and see if might not be a better way of doing this, more efficient or more effective. And they came back and noted that perhaps instead of digging these big trenches and putting steel in to support the trenches while the pipe is put in, maybe there's a trenchless technology that could be used, which is like Elon Musk's boring thing. This is how I visualize it. I know it's not true. So the great thing is, as we've been thinking about that optionality, we now have a trenchless expert. And so.
That's hang that on your resume.
Yeah, I mean, what are the odds of that?
It's like Elon Musk over here.
So Matt's kind of pitching in to figure out what, if trenchless is an option, which going trenchless versus putting, digging 20-foot holes through dirt that's likely somewhat contaminated, seems to me like a way better option. But before we can do that, we have to have test borings to understand what's under that road, where the rock begins and so forth.
Trenchless would, what does that leave us with? Something above ground, or is it?
No, so what they do is they dig two large pits, so it's not really trenchless, but they don't actually form trenches. They have two, like a 10 by 20 or so pit on the starting side, and then another one on the receiving side, and then they send an auger through to drill through the dirt.
Okay.
And so the pipe is what is it, like 15, 20 feet deep, is that?
At least.
And we have to go, and to evaluate this, we need deep borings, because you need to go about 10 feet below where you're proposing to actually do this, to find out where rock is, and, there are certain limitations to trenchless, but, I think the initial estimate of that 8 million, I think 6 million or so was for the shoring alone, and so,
Mhm.
which is a substantial, I mean, 2/3 of the total cost, and so, trenchless could theoretically save a couple $1 million versus that. But we need to do some additional deep bore testing to confirm that it's a viable option. You can do trenchless through rock. It's obviously gonna be more expensive that way. And if where we're proposing to put the pipe is like right at that intersection of dirt and rock, then it's not gonna be as feasible, because the machine will kind of keep bouncing on top of the rock, and
Right.
we won't get the line that we want, so.
So you want kind of all dirt?
So we either want all rock or all dirt,
Gotcha,
but we don't want to be putting in the pipe where dirt meets rock.
gotcha.
So that's the main purpose of the additional borings, is to confirm that we can do it, so. But even a mixture of trenchless and trenching would be considerable savings over that $6 million shoring option, so. And we do have a pretty long straight run, which that would bode well for trenchless. The turns that would be a lot harder to do.
Right.
We would just need more of those 10 by 20 large pits.
Right.
How do you connect the laterals down to 20 feet when you're doing trenchless? You put some
I
sort
mean,
of,
for any lateral, yeah, they'll have a machine. They'll TV the line ahead of time and know exactly where each of them are, and then they'll send a little machine through the pipe when it's completed, and it'll just have a little saw, a circular
Really?
saw. Yeah, it'll just bore, it'll cut new holes right through.
we found it's really expensive
Matt?
to dig in Fairfield.
Matt, may I ask you a question?
Sure.
Do we have any issues with trenchless, with permitting from the state through that area?
I can't imagine, I mean.
Any
states
different than
typically
if we
prefer
dug the
French.
ditches?
Huh?
Any difference than if we dug the whole thing out? Do it the standard way with steel trenches
It would,
versus?
it would likely be an easier permit to get doing
Okay,
trenchless.
Thank you.
Yeah, remember the point that Chris brought up, that there's a lot of utilities in that road that you're kind of bobbing and weaving around. Plus, I think we have some soil samples back now too, which.
Yeah, you got some contaminated soils. I think that was the original reason for all those borings, was there was contamination, and then once you dig it out, you gotta get rid of it, and that gets real expensive.
You gotta report what you find.
And all the other utilities are considerably more shallow, so trenchless would very easily avoid all of those other ones. that are-
Let's hope it's an option.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think we were getting more soil borings from whoever, was it right here?
So we need to, I think Cardinal has a contract.
Correct.
I think we established on Friday that we don't have sufficient borings right now, and so I guess I need to put a recommendation together in terms of what we need, in terms of how deep we need borings and approximate locations, and then I can give that to Bill. Bill can maybe go back to Cardinal and get those borings.
I think that's the only way it gets done, my friend.
Sounds good.
Yep, we're a hands-on commission.
Right.
Yeah.
And then, so what did we talk about? We talked from there, we got a month or two or we got about 2 months for more borings, and then we talked trying to get an RFP out for the,
Assuming trenchless is a
Assuming
viable
it's
option
trenchless.
based on the borings, then yeah, we would go out to RFP for a new design contract for trenchless.
yep, so then we got like a month to put an RFP together. We got another 2 to 3 months to get an RFP out through the town that we talked to with Bill Hurley. So like this is, we got about 6-7 month project if all things go smoothly.
Yeah, if we keep
Now,
moving it.
Just to get
Yeah.
an RFP.
Yeah. Well, to give you some context, to go from knowing that we need to do this to where we are right now, has taken 6 years.
Don't tell me this.
Yeah. And you know where construction costs have gone over 6 years? Yeah, probably triple.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think they're going down anytime soon.
But I thought that was it was a positive meeting that we had. I thought it was good with everyone there. I thought we made some good headway.
We did, and really appreciate, again, your time and availability for that. Speaking of RFPs, do you want to talk a bit about the RFP
Sure, so,
process?
yeah, I mean, related to both of those two projects, so we're putting together an RFP for on-call consulting engineering services so that the commission doesn't have to be doing all of the on-call engineering and consulting services.
That would be you and.
Yeah. And so, I had a couple, example RFPs as go-bys. I mean, most locally, the city of Norwalk, WPCA, they have an on-call engineering contract where they actually have 3 separate on-calls, one for wastewater treatment plant services, one for pump stations, and one for wastewater collection systems. And so they left it as an option to select one or multiple engineers under each one of those, and they'll use that as sort of an extended arm of the city's engineering department. So.
And then when we talked to Bill Hurley with the RFP, that we have to label specific projects within the RFP to make it, I guess, town standard.
That's what I want to talk to Bill a little bit more about, because I looked, so the one that I was working off of before was from Jersey. But this Norwalk one, though, it puts estimated, like approximate annual values to the on-call, but doesn't have, and it asks for rates, but it doesn't specifically, and it suggests that they hire so once they've selected their on-call consultants, they work out task order arrangements with them. They don't have to go to additional RFP for them, which is what I thought we could do, but I need to talk to Bill to make sure. I don't want to put this together and find out that we have to go to RFP for.
Is that a Bill Hurley question or a town attorney question?
I guess it's
Probably a purchasing question.
Right, yeah, it's a purchasing question.
So then how would it go from, so Bill Hurley would check with purchasing, or?
My view is it can't hurt. So what we talked about was, the Metro Center, the East Trunk Interceptor, and perhaps a pump station, the Fairfield Beach Road pump station,
Right.
as being realistically 3 projects we have sufficient manpower to capacity to address over the next couple of years. We have a list of a bunch of other projects, but I think realistically, those are probably the 3 that are priority right now. So if we include those in the RFP, I don't see any downside in it. If I was an engineer responding to it, it'd give me some context that, okay, it's at least of some substance. You know, there's
Right.
It's a couple of your projects.
$20 million or so worth of work. And Joe and Nancy and Ron, and Tom, we had talked before about funding a line item for kind of, the term I would use is a kind of an owner's rep, someone representing us to oversee the resources to get these projects done on time and on budget. We didn't think we had to go to purchasing or anyone to do that, but we're finding out we probably do, so that's why we're going through this hoop right now.
I guess the biggest question with respect to the RFQ is, well, twofold. One, we don't want it to be a purely cost-based decision, and 2, we don't necessarily want to define the total value of the contract in terms of exact dollars and cents. I mean, it's more an hourly-based support type of thing as opposed to.
I guess we would look to you guys for guidance on, we want quality support here.
Right.
And so what is going to be attractive enough to the marketplace to elicit a response?
Right.
I think getting that out and kind of labeling what we have would help, because then they could see, hey, there's some major projects here. These are, this is 3+ years of work here, easily. What we got to do, I think I don't think it hurts us putting in what it would be for if we have to.
Okay.
You know, I'd see any company looking to throw some bids in, Wright Pierce, Time Bond, any of the larger companies, I would say. I think either one of them I think all of them are pretty well qualified. You know, you get to the right people, they're all about the same.
How do we, I know I'm getting ahead of myself, but when we get responses and we get a firm response, like Ray Pierce, how do we say, okay, how do we identify the specific people who are going to be?
Well, in the RFQ response, and we could be specific about it and say, like, please identify the team that you're using and the key personnel and let us know of their availability and that kind of stuff.
Okay.
I mean, any engineering firm could theoretically do a bait and switch where they submit X, Y, and Z people, but then give us A, B, C.
Yeah.
It's a fool me once, fool me twice. So, I mean, if they do it this time, then they probably won't get rehired for the next round because we wouldn't trust them. But we wouldn't know that right now.
Okay.
Or at least I don't have background.
Matt, we have the ability to go to other towns. We have a lot of contacts. So if they've worked in other towns and they've pulled a bait and switch from other
That's a good
contracts, we would,
Right.
from a reference point of view, we'd know that. We can find that out.
Exactly. I mean, we'd be asking for references for similar type of work for sure. And I would.
And we could
highly
go and
recommend-
find out from those towns.
Exactly. Yep.
And one quick thing too is just kind of thinking, especially here at meetings, that we should put in the RFP, it's required for them to go to one meeting a month for the sewer commission meeting. We should put that right in there, so then at least we have a representative there,
Yeah, that's a good call.
so they know about it, so they don't think it's just a 9 to 5.
You know, they name for want of a better characterization, a product manager, or a project manager, sorry. And they'd have, who would then report, a single point of contact, effectively reporting back to this, WPCA.
All right, don't ask Matt to do anything else.
You've got to find what area to work on.
Put his name in there.
This is a volunteer
You get paid finally.
Volunteer position.
Don't think I'm allowed to do that.
Okay. John Clancy, why don't you walk us through the rest of the projects if you have that list
Sure,
handy?
so that was well. Okay, the Eastern Turnpike Pump Station, we'll start there. The punch list items and station cleanup has been completed. The town locks have been installed and the fencing is complete. We're just waiting on the paving for that, which should be coming up shortly. The plants will be opening. The East Trunk, no. Wetlands crossing. So, you guys had a meeting for Riverside Drive siphon project. Could be included in a grant that the town is pursuing to replace the bridge, tide gates, and to improve the tidal area. WPCF outfall repair, meeting with Dennis from Wright Pierce on March 15th to discuss options for facilitating outfall repair. Full report will be available for next meeting. So that was yesterday. The microgrid. Yankee is back on site and working on the project. The transformer on the south side of the plant needs to be replaced. It's a 28-week delivery time. That postpones the hookups to the fire training, conservation building, and the dog pound. This also delays the electrical connection to the stormwater pump station behind conservation. WPCF is renting a generator to power one pump in case of flooding. Wastewater treatment plant upgrade.
Can I ask a question, John Clancy?
Sure. Yeah.
28 weeks, do we need to make a vote? Do we need to vote on approving the funding for that generator? Or is that coming out of the department?
I
Because
believe,
I'd like to get that on the agenda for
sure.
tonight if we have to approve an amount of money.
I believe, we should take a vote.
Well, I don't know if we could
Just a
take a
quick
vote without
question.
knowing the amount.
Sorry, hey, Joe,
Sorry.
just to,
Well, that one-
I got a question too, is that,
I don't have-
why, if we got, that, for the transformer, did we know this was gonna be a problem, the transformer? Because it, to be honest with you, it kind of ticks me off, is that here we are, we're almost done, this project has been lagging on forever, it sounds.
Years.
And here we are, now we gotta wait another 24,
He said
20
28 months?
28 weeks?
28 weeks.
28 weeks for a
28 weeks.
transformer, and we're paying for a generator? I don't know, it just, to me, seems like we're getting it stuck to us. But that's just me, I'm just kinda like, you know, Yankee, where are we here? Did you know this, or what's going on? You know, it seems to be hard to believe that it takes that long to get a transformer, but I may be wrong. I don't know, I'm just voicing my frustration, I guess, on that. It just seems to me is that Joe, I think we do have to put a vote in to approve the funding for the generator, but I want to press Yankee before we do any approval for any more money, saying, guys, where are we? Is it worth it to fast track it? It might be cheaper to say, guys, listen, we'll pay for shipping. It might be half the cost of this generator each month. Can we expedite shipping? I don't know. There's got to be other ways to get a generator in 28 weeks. I can't see this shutting everyone down.
Chris,
I
my
agree.
only concern was add another 4 weeks if we wait another month before we start doing something on it. Maybe we just need John Brody, and I'll give him a call tomorrow and find out what our options are based on what you just mentioned. Are there any other options for faster than 28 weeks and get some prices?
Yeah, it'd be cheaper.
But
It'd be cheaper
that puts us to next
drive
month.
out there and pick it up. So I think we just got to ask questions, Joe.
Okay.
I agree with Chris. Regardless, it sounds like even if we could fast track it, we're gonna need a temporary generator to protect us while we're waiting for it, regardless of how long. And that seems like it's a pretty high priority thing, so I guess whatever we need to do to,
How big is
obviously, we're not ready to vote tonight.
How far is it away?
It's right there next to the WPC.
So it's my understanding that this is a backup in the event of, you know, a flood. And so the microgrid was built as kind of the equivalent of a backup generator. And it was gonna do a bunch of wonderful things and save us a lot of money. It never worked.
Do that.
Yeah. And, yeah, I'm with Chris. Yankee Electric, I think, is kind of at the trough here. And, Joe, let me take you up on your offer to call John Bodie and offer, you know, if he's had kind of at his wit's end with Yankee, have Chris call him.
I'd be happy to call him, but
Yeah.
I don't know, I don't want to.
What the hell?
It just seems to me is that, you know, I'm just taking it as a contractor or outside owner point of view. I'm like, what the hell? You're the electrician. You did all this stuff. You should have known that we need a transformer, or that one's got to get replaced. It's COVID. We should have figured this out years ago. And then why are we still paying for a generator? This should, you know, we've been writing them checks after checks, it seems like, but.
Was there a schedule? I mean, I know that it's been blown to hell at this point anyway, but was there any kind of schedule
Yeah,
associated
there
with
was
the
a
contract?
schedule, and then there was an
Damages,
issue
or-
with, one of the gas lines, and then it was, you know, we're including the dog pound and the,
Right.
fire station, and they didn't wanna pay, and this thing's been a disaster.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, and there were about 80
Joe,
change
you-
orders.
Yeah. I know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one
Was
of those.
anybody doing construction administration on it or no?
It's one of those things that if you don't have an owner,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And Laura Pooley was, I think, or no, it was, the gentleman who retired. If you lose ownership of a project, you gotta see this all the time.
Right.
It just,
But even on so when we hire engineers to do the design, we don't ask them to do any construction administration services?
I don't know.
Yeah, there's no owner to go to.
Yeah.
Like you're saying.
Right,
Who can we say, guys, what's going on?
right. Yeah, like I mean, my question is,
Community.
who did the design for the
Sure.
microgrid? Like, was it Ty and Bond or Ray Pierce or somebody else? And if so, like, did they have any
Yeah.
scope or contract or anything after design?
It's a great question. I don't recall. What I do recall was it was kind of presented like with all the grant money, this is basically a freebie,
Yeah.
and it's been anything but a freebie.
Yeah.
I'd be more than happy to even, Joe, if you want me to talk to John Bodie and follow through with that, or me to go on a conversation with you, I'd be more than happy to help out where I can.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Chris. I will give John a call tomorrow and we'll see what we could put together.
Yeah, I'll send you my cell number. I'll send my cell out to everyone. So just call me on my cell.
Thank you.
What's next?
Wastewater treatment plant upgrade, funding needed for design at $5 million. Facilities plan has been approved by DEEP. I&I Phase 4 bid documents have been received. Purchasing director is reviewing, will be bid after his okay. Carriage Drive paving resolution to be presented to the commission and voted on this month. Thorpe Street, no update.
George, I understand that Cinto has sold that project, so there'll be a new applicant who comes in with a new proposal. So, all the work that went into, that is, was for naught.
Pipe size issue on Stratfield Road at Owen Fish, waiting on Sacred Heart's monitoring plan for proposed new dorm at Old Jewish Home.
John, do we have anything from any communication from Sacred Heart? I saw that they went to planning and zoning for approval.
Yeah, it's already been approved by planning and zoning.
Yeah.
Proposed by the commission to have Sacred Heart replace the eight-inch section as part of the approval. So it has been approved by planning and zoning.
Yeah, so it's a bit out of sequence. So they would typically come to us first and then go to planning and zoning. But, so I guess we'll wait for them.
Okay.
Now, John Clancy, Sacred Heart about 3 months ago was to get on our agenda for that project, and then they pulled out.
Right.
I think we
Just
asked for
so
some
the
flow
commission knows.
monitoring. We
Yeah,
asked
just so the
for,
commission knows. Yep.
And 15 Uncle Road?
15 Uncle Road, a lawsuit was circulated. I will check with, the town attorney on our next steps. Obviously, there's a different view of the facts between the applicant and us. And, I'll see if we can have an executive session and discuss that more openly with the commission. But given the public nature of this meeting, I don't think it's terribly worthwhile to have much comment on it right now,
Yeah.
here and now.
Yeah.
Okay. That's all.
Mark?
Sure.
One thing, the paperwork, I was trying to read the thing, but it felt like I was drunk or something, because their printer or whatever, it's terrible. It's like blurred.
Yeah, I think you probably, maybe you got a PDF, a scanned PDF version.
Yeah. That's it, but it's you can't see it, but it's terrible.
Yeah.
So
We'll
it's
get
like-
you a copy of the response, it'll be easier to read.
Okay.
Okay? Any
Mark?
comments, questions? Sir?
Can I ask that we add the projects? We at least talked about equipment for the plant, replacement equipment that's going to take 48 months to order and receive and install. Can we add that to the list, please?
Yes, good question, John. Can you add that,
Sure.
just the plant upgrades?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I asked John Bodie about the one that he brought forward a month or so ago, the $500,000 press. And his view is it might make sense to wait on that because it's not a kind of a plug and play piece of equipment that other things would need to be done. And he may want to wait on that. But Tom, the point is that if you go on a tour of the plant, and Chris, yeah, I know you went on one recently, there are components of that plant that you wonder how they're still operating. And the consensus is that the plant needs to be upgraded. And we've kind of dragged our feet for 6-7 years now. It's a major expense. It's probably, north of $60 million now. And that's not adding any capacity. That's just, so it's, at what point in time do we do it? You'll be on the commission when it gets done. I'll be off.
So I got that going for me.
I bring it up, yeah. When I joined the commission, 10 years ago, it was, we have to do this like tomorrow. I don't know who's keeping that equipment running and functioning, but God bless them. And so the thought was, are there any components that really should be replaced before the entire plant is upgraded? And that's an ongoing conversation.
What's going on with the plant upgrade, the engineering?
It's about a $5 million expend for the design of the upgrade.
Right, we awarded to Wright Pierce, didn't we?
I think we did. I don't recall. It
So
was probably 3 years ago.
Have they started
Yeah.
anything or no?
No, there's been some internal discussion on the town that do we want to add capacity? When do we want to stage? Once you start with the design, then it's the full, let's go, from 0 to 60 million. When do we want to kind of begin that pretty rapid increase in the cost to the users? And then there was some discussion about potentially Trumbull leaving Bridgeport and coming into Fairfield.
Okay.
And would they be interested in, writing a check to participate, tens of millions of dollars?
Right.
John Marsilio was having those conversations, and I think, is John still out on?
Yeah.
He's out on medical disability, so before we had a Department of Public Works head who also had, quite a bit of, well, not before, I mean, going back to Joe Michelangelo, who effectively ran these conversations on infrastructure projects. He had a background in engineering and the WPCA. We haven't had someone at Department of Public Works now for 4 or 5 years who has that expertise. So that's why we're kind of cobbling together commission members and to kind of fill that void. That's what's going on right now.
So they're only for a detailed design, like a facility plan was done a few years back, and so should we be taking a step back and redoing a facility plan then?
It's probably at the point that I don't know. I don't know how much technology has evolved.
It's not even necessarily that technology has, but one thing, I don't know, I don't think we have much in terms of flow equalization at the treatment plant. So that's a pretty low technology option that we could potentially add that would help capture I&I if we are not significantly reducing it out of so that at least during wet weather events, we've got storage. That doesn't help anything with treatment, but it at least adds capacity to a plant. There's a lot of different technology stuff in terms of, PFAS is an emerging contaminant issue, and then there's also
What's that?
PFAS, it's like I forget what it stands, polyfluoral something. It's the Teflon Yeah,
Microplastic.
exactly, right. So treating that though in wastewater is becoming a new thing, and then resource recovery in plants, I mean, I don't know how much interest or how much there's an economically viable position there for us to be capturing, doing like solid digestion and then converting it to energy.
Yeah. I suspect that, you know, the engineering thought process is about 5 years old now.
Right.
And I'm not sure how dynamic it was. It was like, you know, give us what we have, you know, the 2.0 version of what we have.
Right.
5 years ago. So I think it absolutely makes sense.
It almost just sounds like, yeah, wastewater master plan needs to happen to figure out, I mean, to your point, the Trumbull potential stuff and capacity, thinking about those type of things, future treatment issues, all that kind of stuff.
No, John took Chris and I through the plan. I mean, the thing I felt was remarkable, that it was in good a shape as it is, given its age.
Right.
You know, it's functioning very, very well and in fairly good condition, and kind of, you know, say, well, this is, you know, 58 or something. It's almost as old as I am.
Right.
I'll say that the personnel of the plant have just, they're outstanding, and their ability to keep things running, and, you know, it's, that's been the great benefit, that these guys know how to fix things, and they've had solid management. You know, Bill Norton was, you know, very highly regarded in the industry, and he trained John Bodie, and John stepped up, so that's a real bright spot for us.
You got to think about that institutional knowledge, and you know, what would happen if you lose it? You know, that's the thing that I wonder about. You know. Yeah,
I worry about that, and I worry about you know, being held ransom and being hacked.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I'm not quite sure what technology that they're on. I think it's PC based, you know, so it's more, it's a greater exposure to than otherwise would be with a Unix based system.
You're talking about for the SCADA?
I'm talking about the systems they use down there, and then the software platforms. I don't think we even own them, or you know, somebody else's platforms. That's another thing I kind of worry about.
yeah, it reminds me of the emissions, the DMV emissions that got held ransom for 4 months this year.
Okay.
No one got emissions done because DMV didn't want to pay the ransom. So, yeah, I mean, if
10 years now they've been held ransom?
yeah, at least. But yeah, to the extent, you know, often the plant's not manned, so there are people who are logging in remotely, and that gives me concern. But we'll save that for maybe next month.
It'd be nice to know how the network works here as far as connectivity between the wastewater plant and the town of Fairfield, the data processing.
Yeah. Ron, I might rope you into that study. That's right up your alley.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we used to get ransomware and everything else at Diageo from the employees in South Africa would use their own PCs. So we found out nobody was getting their updates and letting it update. Nobody was using virus protection. So they got hacked. They got ransomed.
All right.
Hey, Mark, 5 years ago, we had the IT director of the town come and present with just such concerns. We might want to invite him to one of our meetings just so the commission can hear what he's doing and what he's done to harden the security around the plant.
Yeah, I've been told that, but this might be one of those items that we undertake ourselves and then compare notes with the town.
Okay.
Is what I'm thinking. We've learned a few lessons on shared resources. Okay. That's it for projects. There were no outfalls or discharges, according to seconded John Bodie. And, any comments, questions before we adjourn? Is there a motion to adjourn? Matt just beat Tom to second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Nancy, Ron, Joe, thanks for joining us
Thank
from
you.
home.
Thank
Thank
you.
you,
Hopefully
Sheila.
next time in person.
Thank you, guys.
I hope so. It's been 2
Thanks.
years.
Yeah,
Aye.
Thank you.
Person.
care everyone.
Yeah.
Bye, Ron.